Yo, this video is sponsored by Artless. Let's get it. What's up, y'all? Tight Shirt Terry Warfield back for another video. Hey, I hope you're having a great day so far. Remember to be thankful for your life today because you did not have to have that. As you see on the table, we are talking about the Sony A7IV in 2023 and should you still buy this camera. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes, two things I got to tell you. Number one, I do not script videos, so if your boy mess up, I just mess up. Number two, if you can't get a good result with this camera or any of today's cameras period, you freaking suck, okay? Anyways, I'm only making this video because I made a video a couple weeks ago about how I feel like the new Lumix S5 Mark II for full frame cameras is the value king. However, that does not mean that I think it's the best camera, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So all of the competitors, Sony cameras included, I'm gonna be honest, I still think the Sony A7IV is the camera to buy when it comes to a full frame hybrid around this price point. Now that we got that out the way, I've been using the Sony A7IV since the day it freaking came out. Actually, before it came out, because I had a pre-release, so I have a good idea of everything that this camera can and cannot do, right? Also, I don't want to put unrealistic expectations on what we should get for 2,500 bucks, right? Because the Sony A7R5 has all the improvements, but it's also $4,000, right? So for 2,500 bucks, I think we got to be mindful of what this camera should and should not be able to do. With that being said, right, let's talk about the first thing I don't like, and that is the ergonomics, man. I'm sorry, I don't like the ergonomics of modern Sony cameras in comparison to their competitors, right? The S5 Mark II and the R6 Mark II, I feel like do ergonomics a whole lot better. It's not that the A7IV is bad, but it just doesn't feel premium like the other competitor cameras do. Mainly the grip. I don't like the grip depth. I wish it was, you know, a little deeper. It's really close to the lens flange. Like when you put on like a fat lens like the 50mm f1.2, which by the way, if you're interested in that new 50mm f1.4 versus the f1.2 gangster mode, hit that link up there. But when you put like a bigger lens on here, your middle finger does bump up against the lens. The other thing is, I just don't like the rear monitor that the A7IV has. And again, in comparison to the Lumix S5 Mark II and the R6 Mark II, this is the worst one out of all of them. The EVF is cool, but this rear monitor, hey, even the Sony FX30 has a better rear monitor than the Sony A7IV. Come on now, Sony. Now also, I don't expect this thing to be able to have all of the features like the FX30 or the FX3 does because it's not designated as a cinema camera. But for real, the FX30 got me to thinking, if that thing can have 4K 120 and an APS-C crop, then why doesn't the Sony A7IV have that? Neither here nor there. What we did get was 4K 60, and when this camera first came out, everybody was pissed about it, including me, right? 4K 60 with a 1.5 times crop. What is Sony thinking? I really wish that, you know, I've learned to deal with it, by the way. I've actually learned to use it to my friggin' advantage, but I really wish that we could have had a full frame 4K 60, maybe like low quality mode. So maybe like a line skipped 4K 60 full frame, or make it 8-bit or something like that. And the EOS R6 Mark II shoots 4K 60 full frame. So I'm just throwing it out there. I wish that we could have had it, but we didn't. The next thing, rolling shutter is not the greatest. So I'm just throwing it out there. And also the threat of overheating is absolutely there. Now I've only had it overheat on me a few times. And honestly, it was shooting in broad daylight in the summertime when it was 80 degrees outside. Aside from that, I haven't had many issues, but I know some people have had major overheating issues with their Sony A7IV, so definitely something to be mindful of. And honestly, aside from those things, and I know I'm not going to hit every single little freaking detail, the Sony A7IV though is actually really great. So let me talk about the stuff that I really love about the A7IV and reasons I think you should still buy it over the competitors right after we get into today's sponsor, Artless. Now, if you're not hip, honestly, Artless is the best platform out there for content creators, and I promise you I'm not trying to gas you up. Listen, there are over 27,000 royalty-free professional songs on there, over 22,000 professional sound effects on there, and the entire catalog is curated. So there's a built-in filter system. You can pick genre, you can pick mood, instrumental, all of that stuff is really easy to find the music that you need. On top of that, there are a ton of video assets. So whether you need intros, titles, openers, graphical overlays, all of that stuff is available. And the powerful part is it's all one platform, so you don't need to go anywhere else. Now, there is a package for everybody, right? So they start at $9.99 if you just want like music and sound effects for your socials, or I would encourage you to check out Artless Max because it includes your music, your sound effects, and all the visual assets. And there's a second tier that also gives you a really good video editing program. If you don't have one, you can download it straight to your computer and use it there. So listen, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, you need Artlist in your life. Hit the link down in the description. I will give you 2 free months at the end of your annual subscription, but it is for a limited time only. Do yourself a favor, stop robbing yourself of your time and try Artlist out. Now that we got that out the way, let's talk about the things I absolutely love about the Sony A7 IV. And you know what, for this segment, let's go ahead and take the Condor blue sensor cap off, which there will be a link in the description for that. And let's slap on this 50mm f1.2 gangster mode. We need to put this on here. Oh yeah, look at this, beautiful. Okay, first thing is first, we got to talk about the 33 megapixel files out of this camera. They are absolutely amazing. First of all, it's a ton of resolution for cropping. There's a ton of detail. There's different levels of raw compression in there and JPEG compression. You can shoot HEIF, H-E-I-F, however you want to freaking say it. I say HEIF, but that's available in there. And overall, these files just, they're so good, yo. The pictures are so good out of this camera. The raw files have a ton of flexibility. The colors are really good. It also shoots really good photo and video in low light, which we could just go ahead and transition to low light right now, right? It does have dual native ISOs of 800 and 2500 and S-Log3, and honestly up to about ISO 6400, man. This thing can run neck and neck with the A7S III, but the low light performance dynamic range is the best in the mid-tier full frame camera segment out there right now, hands down. The next thing I really freaking love about this camera is the photo video switch. I cannot tell y'all as a hybrid shooter how good this switch is. Being able to flip back between photo, video, and S&Q and still have your 1, 2, and 3 presets on there gives you almost enough presets to not have to dig through the menu for anything once you have it set up. So that switch right there is game changing. Full size HDMI is next level. Now the R6 Mark II and the S5 Mark II can do raw output, A7 IV cannot, but this does have full-size HDMI, USB-C so you can charge it with power delivery, and it has a headphone jack and microphone jack, so the I/O is there. Dual SD cards is clutch for you data rate snobs out there. You can run a CF Express Type A card in slot number 1, where you can't do that with the S5 Mark II or the R6 Mark II, and that brings me to autofocus. So the R6 Mark II is honestly the king of autofocus around the $2,500 ballpark. And the only Sony camera that can run with it right now is the Sony A7R5, but that's $4,000 bucks. So with that being said, I can only sum up the autofocus on A7 IV as reliable. Is it the absolute best with all the AI and all that stuff that the newer Canon and the Sony camera has? No, but it's literally just a step right behind it. I have never been in a situation where this autofocus has let me down. It is sticky, it's reliable, you know what to expect from it, and honestly, that's all I can ask for out of a camera. So when it comes to autofocus, this camera will not let you down. Battery life is amazing also. You can run about 2 hours of 4K recording all day using photos on one battery. Sony batteries are lit, and I want to take a moment to talk about video because this is like middle of the road, right? The S5 Mark II absolutely handles business when it comes to video, codecs, resolutions, frame rates, all that stuff. But the Sony A7 IV is really good also. It's not the most capable, but you got 4K 24, 4K 30, 4K 60 with a 1.5 times crop. You can do 1080p 120 frames per second at 8-bit. S&Q, you could do 10-bit, but it really has all of your major video needs covered. Do I wish it could do everything the S5 Mark II could do when it comes to monitoring and all that stuff? Yes, but we know Sony ain't giving us that. But neither here nor there. What's really good about the Sony A7 IV is you get 10-bit, right? You get 420, you get 422, you get H.264, you get H.265. You get long GOP, you get intro recorded in just about every single mode, and you don't need to pick a log profile to access 10-bit, but you do get S-Log3, you get S-Cinetone, and all of that stuff is available without having to take any shortcuts or use this mode to access this. Like, it's not the most capable video camera out there, but it is a really good video camera. The microphones that Sony has, like this ECM series, especially for vloggers and content creators, is one major reason why you should pick Sony over the other brands around this price point. These microphones are amazing. They don't need batteries, they don't need cables, they're digital, so they handle all of the freaking processing on board, and honestly, they sound great. It eliminates the guesswork out of your sound when it comes to your videos. The other thing I really like about the Sony A7 IV is the stabilization. And by the way, this is the Sony ECM B10 microphone on top, and there's a whole lot going on over here. He working on the light pole, so anyways, the stabilization of the A7 IV is real good. Now, is it better than the Lumix S5 Mark II? No, but it's good enough. I'm at 17 millimeters with the Tamron 17 to 28, and I'm on active stabilization and I'm walking. And as you see, It ain't really no wobbling or anything like that going on. So it's like middle of the road between the R6 Mark II and the S5 Mark II, and it's really, really good. Plus it records gyro stabilization that you can use in post to stabilize, which the competitors can't even have that conversation. So yeah, the stabilization is actually really, really good. We got to take a second to talk about lenses, because maybe the A7 IV is not the best when it comes to everything, but one thing it does have is the freaking lenses. Listen, Sony has, I think, like 77 native lenses, okay? And that's standard lenses, that's gangsta lenses, G, that's gangsta mode lenses, GM, plus you got Zeiss lenses, plus you got all the third-party manufacturers, Tamron, Sigma, Mikey, Viltrox, that are native E-mount, plus you can adapt whatever lenses you want to when it comes to lens selection. And this is a huge thing because we're talking about the Sony A7 IV and the ecosystem as a whole. Yo, it's unmatched. Nobody can touch Sony's versatility when it comes to lens selection, and that is a big deal when it comes to which system you should choose if you are jumping into a new system. The last thing is like built-in live streaming, the focus map, breather compensation. Those things are also amazing. Let's go ahead and bring this around full circle, right? All of these cameras do something better than the other, right? None of them are perfect. So you really got to decide what features are most important to you. Cost, lenses, microphones, the entire ecosystem you have to take into account. And I really feel that the Sony A7 IV is not really good at one thing, but it's good enough at a whole lot of little things. So for 2,500 bucks, I still feel like in 2023, this is the camera you should buy, unless you know one or two things. If you know that you're going to be shooting majority video, then you might want to consider the S5 Mark II. If you know that you're going to be doing more photography, especially fast action stuff, then the R6 Mark II would be better suited for you. But if you're just looking for that all-in-one camera that can do pretty much everything, has the lens selection, it's not without flaws, it does need some work, right? But as a whole package, it is really hard to beat the Sony A7 IV against any other camera out there around the price point, because it is just reliable. It is the tool that gives you just enough of everything to make it really complete for most people. Honestly, the A7 IV is the reason why I didn't pick up the A7R5, because although it's not perfect, it's good enough in just about everything. So I'm really curious to know what y'all think about the Sony A7 IV. Let me know down in the comments. And lastly, before you get out of here, right, I know you're a creator and I'm sure that you need music and video assets and all of that stuff. Do not disservice yourself any longer by not trying Artlist. Remember, I will give you 2 free months on your annual subscription by using the link below. Trust me, you will love it. I think that's it. I'm losing my voice. Till next time, I'm out of here. Peace and chicken grease, tight shirt, Terry Warfield. I'm out. Peace.